I remember how the sun spilled across the garden that afternoon, like it had been painted just for me. Everything felt so right. The flowers, the music, the buzz of voices I loved filling the air. I moved from table to table, hugging friends, thanking family, soaking it all in like it might disappear if I blinked too fast. Everywhere I turned, there was laughter, the clink of glasses, the kind of warmth you don't question. My parents kept stealing proud little glances at me, and Liam was perfect, or at least, that's what I believed. There was this moment, standing by the fountain, when I closed my eyes just to feel it all. The sun kissed my shoulders, the breeze danced with the hem of my dress, and for a heartbeat, the whole world was still. I thought, this is it. This is the happiness people spend their whole lives chasing, and it was mine. Tomorrow, I would marry the love of my life, surrounded by everyone who mattered. I thought I was stepping into forever. That night, I couldn't stop smiling as I packed away little gifts and notes from friends. Liam was upstairs, singing off-key in the shower, probably rehearsing his vows. The house smelled like vanilla candles and fresh roses, and for a second, I just stood there, breathing it in. I felt so lucky, so impossibly lucky. I wandered over to the couch, my dress brushing the floor, when I heard it, the soft buzz of his phone lighting up on the coffee table. Without thinking, I reached for it, expecting maybe a message from his best man or a funny meme from his brother. Instead, a name popped up that made my stomach flip. Claire, my sister. I told myself it was probably something innocent, a last-minute wedding detail, nothing more. But when the screen lit up again, I froze. She can't find out what we're doing. The words burned into my mind, and just like that, the perfect day cracked wide open. My heart pounded so loud, I was sure he could hear it upstairs. I stared at the message, willing it to make sense, to be anything but what it seemed. Claire and Liam? No. No, that wasn't possible. They laughed together, sure, but so did everyone. They joked. They hugged. That's what families did, right? I shook my head, trying to snap myself out of it, but something inside me had already started to splinter. I told myself not to overreact. Not without proof. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe I was being crazy, tired from all the planning and stress. But curiosity gnawed at me like an itch I couldn't ignore. I tapped the message open. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. And right there, like a punch to the gut, was the whole rotten truth. Flirty messages, inside jokes, secret meetings, whispered promises. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't just one mistake. They had been sneaking around for months, right under my nose, right in the middle of my dream. All those late nights Liam claimed to be working late. All those mysterious errands Claire ran when she was supposed to be helping with the wedding. Pieces started snapping together in my mind, faster than I could stop them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But more than anything, I wanted to disappear. Instead, I sat there, the wedding dress hanging in the corner of the room, staring at me like some cruel joke. It was beautiful, ivory lace and tiny stitched pearls, everything I had ever wanted. But now, it felt hollow. It felt like a costume, a mask for someone else's fantasy, not mine. I hugged my knees to my chest, the weight of the betrayal settling like a stone in my gut. Tomorrow was supposed to be the best day of my life. But now I wasn't even sure who I was marrying. I sat there for what felt like hours, listening to the shower running upstairs, like it was mocking me with its steady, oblivious rhythm. Every second that ticked by, the ache inside me grew sharper, cutting deeper. How could they? How could she, my sister, my best friend, look me in the eyes and help plan a day that was built on lies? I thought about every toast she had given, every dress fitting she had smiled through, and it made my skin crawl. I wasn't just losing a fiancé, I was losing family. For a moment, rage flared up so hot and fierce inside me, it scared me. I imagined storming upstairs, throwing the phone at Liam, demanding answers, demanding truth. I imagined the look on Claire's face when she realized I knew everything. I wanted that explosion. I craved the fire of it. But then, something inside me shifted. A colder, quieter voice rose up, one that whispered a different idea. Maybe they didn't deserve a messy scene. Maybe they deserved something better. I wiped my face, set the phone back exactly where I found it, and stood up, feeling strangely calm. My hands still trembled, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been all night. I walked over to the wedding dress and ran my fingers over the fabric, remembering how excited I had been to wear it. I thought about the vows I had written, full of promises and hope. They didn't deserve those words anymore. They didn't deserve a single tear. No, I would give them something else entirely. Upstairs, the water shut off. I heard Liam humming as he moved around, oblivious to the world crumbling just a floor below him. I looked around the room one last time, the candles, the roses, the framed photos of a future that no longer existed. And in that moment, I made a silent vow to myself. If they wanted to tear my world apart in secret, I would tear theirs down in the open. Tomorrow wouldn't be the day I married a lie. Tomorrow would be the day I took my life back. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster like they could hold me together. Every time I closed my eyes, flashes of their messages burned behind my eyelids, sharper than any nightmare. By the time the first rays of light bled into the room, something inside me had hardened. The ache was still there, bruised and raw. But now it had an edge. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. Furious at them, and furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept hearing their voices in my head, Liam's promises, Claire's reassurances, now laced with a venom I couldn't unhear. How many times had I trusted them, confided in them, leaned on them like a fool? I thought about the birthdays, the late-night phone calls, the tears we wiped away for each other. Were they all lies? Or did they just start lying when it got inconvenient? My chest tightened with every memory. They didn't just betray me, they mocked everything I believed in. At breakfast, the house buzzed with excitement. Family members fluttered around the kitchen, laughing, decorating, toasting with mimosas. And there I was, sipping coffee, smiling, playing the part of the blissful bride-to-be. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and break every glass in the house, but instead, I tucked the bitterness deep inside me, where no one could see, because today wasn't going to be their day. It was going to be mine, just not in the way anyone expected. I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror, the dress rehearsal version of Sophie, all bright eyes and soft curls. But when I looked closer, I saw the cracks running underneath. I saw the woman who had been handed a betrayal and was about to turn it into something stronger than revenge, reclamation. I ran my fingers down the side of the mirror, steadying myself. They wanted to play dirty? I thought. Fine. I would play smart, and it would be a show they'd never forget. While everyone buzzed around, talking about centerpieces and seating charts, I quietly slipped away to my old bedroom upstairs. It still smelled faintly of lavender and dust, untouched except for the wedding chaos scattered around. I sat on the edge of the bed, my dress for the rehearsal dinner hanging on the door, mocking me. There was a time when this room was my safe place, my refuge. Now it felt like enemy territory. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. My heart hammered in my chest, but my mind was already moving faster. I knew I had two choices. I could explode right now, tear the day apart with anger and heartbreak. Or I could wait. I could be patient. Make it bigger. Make it unforgettable. And deep down, I knew which version of me deserved to win. Not the broken, sobbing girl they expected, but the woman who could turn betrayal into a masterpiece. Every second I waited, I built something stronger inside myself, something sharper. I wasn't the victim of this story anymore. I was taking the pen back. I grabbed my laptop from my bag and sat cross-legged on the carpet like I used to when I was a kid, doing homework and dreaming about the future. Funny how the future can look so different when you finally see it without the rose-colored glasses. My hands moved quickly, fueled by a quiet, cold fury. Screenshot after screenshot, I pulled every message, every photo, every little secret out of Liam's phone and onto my own device. Not a shred of doubt, not a shadow of mercy. They had written their own downfall. Downstairs, someone called my name, and I snapped the laptop closed, slipping it back into my bag. I smoothed my hair, wiped the fire from my face, and pasted on a smile so wide it almost hurt. Walking down the stairs, I felt like a soldier marching to battle, only no one around me even knew a war had started. Claire was laughing in the living room, tossing her hair back, sparkling in her bridesmaid dress. Liam caught my eye and winked, and right then I knew I was going to take them both down, and I wasn't going to miss. All through the rehearsal dinner, I played my part like a pro. Toasts were made, hugs were shared, and laughter echoed off the walls, and I was right there in the middle of it, smiling like nothing had changed. Every time Claire leaned in to whisper something in my ear, every time Liam brushed his hand against mine, I felt this white-hot flame inside me. But outside, I was a vision of calm, perfect, polished, untouched. I watched them both, studied them, and tucked away every smug little glance they thought they got away with. At one point, Liam caught my hand under the table, giving it a squeeze that once would have made my heart race. Now it just made my stomach turn. I squeezed back, sweeter than honey, and he smiled like he'd already won. Let him think that. Let them both think that. I raised my glass when someone toasted to love and new beginnings, my voice ringing out clear and strong. Inside, though, I wasn't toasting to us. I was toasting to their funeral. They just didn't know it yet. When the evening finally wound down, I slipped away again, back into the quiet safety of my room. I sat on the floor, surrounded by ribbons, cards, and unopened gifts. It should have felt magical. It should have felt like the night before the rest of my life. Instead, it felt like a crime scene. I wrapped my arms around my knees and let myself grieve for a minute. Not for them, but for the girl who believed they loved her enough to stay true. That girl deserved better. And I was going to make sure she got it. By the time I crawled into bed, my plan was almost complete. I stared at the ceiling again, but this time I didn't feel broken. I felt sharp, like glass freshly shattered, catching the light at 1,000 different angles. Tomorrow wasn't going to be the day they expected. It wasn't going to be the fairy tale I once dreamed about. It was going to be something else entirely. Something much, much better. And deep in my bones, I knew. They had no idea what was coming. The morning of the wedding felt like stepping onto a stage, lights glaring, every eye waiting for me to perform. I slipped into my role without missing a beat, the glowing bride, the picture of joy. My makeup was flawless, my smile even better. Every brushstroke, every pinned curl, it all became part of the armor I wore that day. Inside, I was calculating every move, every word, every glance. Nobody could see the storm beneath the satin and lace, and that was exactly how I wanted it. I moved through the morning like a woman possessed, laughing with my bridesmaids, taking photos, thanking guests who had traveled miles to be there. Claire flitted around too, all nervous energy and fake smiles. Or maybe that part was real. I wondered if she felt the weight yet, the crackle of something wrong humming in the air. Liam acted like he was on top of the world, charming everyone in sight. If they noticed the trap being set under their feet, they didn't show it. But me? I savored every delicious second. I had arranged everything with the DJ the night before, slipping him a flash drive with a wink and a whispered explanation. The slideshow would play just after our vows, under the pretense of a sentimental tribute to our childhoods. Sweet, right? Nostalgic, heartwarming, and devastating. The officiant was in on it too, ready to follow my cue when the time came. No one else knew. No one else had to. This wasn't about embarrassment for the crowd. It was about truth, about setting myself free in front of everyone who mattered. As the ceremony hour crept closer, I made sure Liam and Claire were both placed front and center, right where the whole room could see them. Every time I caught their eyes, I felt that steady, dangerous calm settle deeper into my bones. They thought they had me cornered. They thought they had won. But the thing about betrayal is, it leaves scars that can either break you or make you sharper. Today wasn't going to be about heartbreak. It was going to be about taking my life back, piece by piece. When I slipped into my dress, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked breathtaking, strong, radiant, but there was something fierce in her eyes now, something unbreakable. The satin hugged my body like armor, and the veil floated behind me like a banner in battle. For a moment, I let myself grieve the version of me who had dreamed of this day being perfect. But then I straightened my shoulders and reminded myself, this day would be perfect, just not for the reasons I once imagined. As the guests began to arrive, I could feel the energy shift, that buzzing mix of excitement, nerves, and pure anticipation. I greeted every guest with hugs, laughter, even a few happy tears. No one suspected a thing. Claire kept stealing glances at me, like she was checking for cracks, signs that her little secret was still safely hidden. Liam, ever the charmer, worked the room like he was born for it. And me? I floated through it all like a ghost, smiling, shining, and quietly sharpening the knife they had handed me. We took photos in the garden, posed with flowers, posed with friends, posed with family. My cheeks hurt from smiling, but it was a small price to pay. I stood between Liam and Claire in one shot, their arms casually draped around me. If only they knew. If only they could see the countdown clock ticking behind my eyes. With every flash of the camera, I stitched another memory into place, one they would replay over and over again once the truth ripped through this fantasy. By the time the ceremony was about to begin, the air was thick with sweetness. All whispered well wishes and hopeful sighs. Guests took their seats, murmuring about how beautiful everything was, how lucky I was. I wanted to laugh, loud and bitter, but instead, I clutched my bouquet a little tighter. As the music swelled and I stepped onto the aisle, I didn't feel like a blushing bride. I felt like a woman marching toward a reckoning. Every step forward was a step closer to reclaiming my life on my terms. Standing at the altar, with all those eyes on me, was the strangest feeling. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and knowing you're about to jump. Liam looked at me with that same easy smile he always wore, the one that once made my knees weak. Claire sat near the front, dabbing at her eyes like she was overwhelmed with emotion. It would have been touching if it hadn't been so grotesque. I let them have their moment. I let them believe, right until the very last second, that everything was still under their control. The officiant's voice echoed in my ears, the words blending into a soft hum as I focused on my breathing. I wasn't scared, not anymore. I was ready. When it came time for the vows, I took a small, deliberate step forward, my signal to the DJ. I could almost hear the shift in the room, like a collective breath being held. Liam reached for my hands, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Maybe some small part of him sensed it, the ground about to vanish beneath his feet. The lights dimmed slightly, and the screen behind us flickered to life. I turned to face our guests, my voice steady, my heart pounding with a strange, fierce joy. "Before I make the biggest promise of my life," I said, my voice cutting through the air like glass, "I think you should all see who I'm really promising to." I watched Liam's face pale, Claire stiffen in her seat. The first image flashed onto the screen, a text message, one of many. Gasps rippled through the crowd like waves crashing on rocks. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I stood tall as message after message scrolled across the screen, painting the story they had tried so hard to hide. Photos, dates, times, words that could never be unsaid. The truth, laid bare for everyone to see. Liam stuttered something behind me. Claire half rose from her seat, her face a mask of horror. But no one moved. No one stopped it. I slipped the veil from my head, letting it fall to the ground at my feet, and walked down the aisle toward the exit. Toward something, someone, I had almost forgotten. Myself. The room was frozen in shock, a living portrait of disbelief and betrayal. I could feel every stare, every whispered gasp, but I didn't let it touch me. My heels clicked softly against the wooden floor as I made my way down the aisle, head high, heart thundering. Behind me, the slideshow played on, a symphony of lies unraveling with each new slide. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what they were seeing. The truth, stripped bare under the brightest lights they could never run from. Halfway down the aisle, I caught sight of my mother's face, her hands covering her mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. My chest tightened, not from regret, but from the deep, heavy sadness of what could have been. I had wanted her to see me radiant, joyful, beginning a new chapter. Instead, she was seeing the wreckage they had caused. But even through the shock, I caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Pride. She knew, somehow, that this wasn't a collapse. It was a liberation. Liam stumbled down the steps of the altar, stammering my name like it was a lifeline. "Sophie, wait, please, I can explain." His voice cracked in the heavy silence, desperate and pitiful. I slowed, just long enough to meet his eyes. For a second, everything else disappeared. The guests, the decorations, the broken promises, and all that remained was the hollow man standing before me. I smiled then, not with kindness, but with clarity. I didn't need explanations. I didn't need anything from him anymore. Claire was another story. She bolted up from her seat, wild-eyed, as if she could somehow stop the unraveling. "It wasn't like that," she cried out, voice breaking. But no one moved to comfort her. No one rushed to her side. The silence that answered her was louder than any accusation. I turned away from them both, the doors of the chapel swinging open to a brilliant wash of sunlight outside. I didn't rush. I didn't run. I walked, slow, steady, unshakable, into the beginning of something new. Outside, the air hit me like a second wind, cool, sharp, honest. For the first time in days, I could actually breathe. No more pretending, no more swallowing my truth to protect someone else's comfort. Behind me, the sounds of chaos were starting. Murmurs, footsteps, the clatter of people standing and not knowing what to say. Let them piece it together. Let them talk. I had nothing left to explain. I walked to the edge of the garden, where the petals from the flower girls were still scattered across the grass. Just yesterday, I had imagined walking this same path hand in hand with Liam, hearts full and futures bright. Now, I stood there alone, and somehow, it felt right. Not easy, not painless, but right. Because sometimes standing alone means finally standing up for yourself. I had given him everything, and now I was done giving. A few guests trickled outside, unsure whether to follow or stay behind. Some looked at me with wide eyes, others with quiet admiration. A few came close, placing gentle hands on my arm, offering words I couldn't quite hear. But I nodded. I accepted their kindness. And then I let it go. Because this wasn't about them. This was about reclaiming my voice in a story they thought they had written for me. As I turned back toward the chapel, I caught one last glimpse of the altar. The flowers were still perfect, the chairs still lined in rows. But it wasn't sacred anymore, not for me. I had already made my vow today, and it wasn't to Liam or to some false promise of love. It was to myself, to never again settle for betrayal dressed as devotion. And for the first time since reading that message, I felt something powerful bloom inside me. Peace. Inside, I could hear Claire yelling now, her voice climbing, cracking, trying to rewrite the story before it finished unraveling. I didn't need to see her to know the panic painted across her face, the desperation in her hands. Liam would probably follow me out in a few minutes, still clinging to some fantasy that an apology might fix it all. But they didn't realize the apology should have come months ago, and even then, it wouldn't have been enough. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a choice they made over and over again, and I was done forgiving choices like that. I kept walking until the voices faded behind me, and the world around me settled into a kind of quiet that felt like grace. I sat on a wooden bench at the edge of the lawn, watching the wind stir the leaves and the veil that had fallen from my hair earlier. Funny how something once sacred now looked like nothing more than a piece of cloth. I pulled off my shoes and let my feet touch the earth, grounding myself in the reality of now. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was wide awake. And that mattered more than any wedding vow ever could. Eventually, my mom came to sit beside me, not saying a word at first, just being there. Her hand found mine, and I squeezed it, grateful for that one anchor in a sea of unraveling. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Mothers know when their daughters have walked through fire. After a while, she whispered, "I'm proud of you." That's when my tears came. Not from pain, but from release. From knowing someone saw me. From knowing I hadn't lost everything after all. I stood up again. Stronger this time. Steadier. My dress was wrinkled, my makeup slightly smudged, but I had never felt more beautiful. Not because of how I looked, but because of what I'd reclaimed. I took one last look at the chapel, at the people still buzzing with disbelief inside it. They came expecting a love story, and in a way, they got one. Just not the one they thought. And as I stepped away from the wreckage, I carried only one vow with me, to never again let someone else's lies write my ending. The next few days were a blur of silence and noise, all at once. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Calls from friends, texts from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some sent support, others just wanted the story. And then there were the ones who apologized for never seeing it sooner. I didn't reply to most of them. I wasn't ready to explain or relive it all. I was still learning how to breathe without the weight of betrayal pressing on my ribs. Liam tried to reach me too. Of course he did. Voicemails, long texts, even a message from his mother asking me to hear him out. But there was nothing left to say. He hadn't just cheated. He'd conspired, lied, smiled in my face while building a future with someone else behind my back. That kind of damage doesn't get undone with flowers and tears. The worst part? He probably thought I still owed him a chance to make things right. But some bridges burn down so completely, there's not even ash left to walk on. Claire? She disappeared, vanished into whatever hole she crawled out of, too ashamed or too arrogant to face me. I heard from my cousin that she tried to explain it away, said it just happened, that they didn't mean to fall for each other. Cowards always hide behind accidents. What they really meant was, they liked the thrill of being secret, of having something forbidden. But secrets rot, and when you pull back the curtain, they never survive the sunlight. I didn't need revenge. I had already delivered it. Public, poetic, and permanent. But what I did still need, more than I realized, was closure. So one morning I sat down with a pen and wrote the final words I'd ever send to them. No drama, no insults, just clarity. Thank you for setting me free before I wasted my life. Hope you enjoy each other. You're the only ones who can stand yourselves now. I mailed one copy to each of them. No return address, no signature. Just the truth, folded neatly like a goodbye. After I sent those letters, something shifted. It was quiet at first, like the weight on my chest had finally eased just enough for me to stand taller. I opened the windows in my apartment. I changed the sheets. I threw out every wedding magazine, every candle we picked out together, every object soaked in memories that weren't real. It wasn't about bitterness. It was about cleansing. I wasn't mourning a lost love anymore. I was clearing space for something that had been missing all along. Myself. People kept asking if I was okay. It was kind of funny, actually, how their voices softened, like I might shatter if they asked too loudly. But I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Like someone who had been underwater for too long and had finally come up for air. And no, I wasn't okay in the way they meant. But I was getting there, and not for anyone else. Just for me. I started going for long walks without my phone, letting my thoughts wander without someone else's voice always in my ear. I signed up for a pottery class on a whim. I stopped checking their social media. At first, it was hard. Curiosity is its own kind of addiction. But every time I resisted the urge, I felt stronger, more in control, more like the version of me they didn't think I'd ever find again, the one they'd underestimated, the one who survived them both. And slowly, something beautiful began to grow in the space they left behind. Not a new romance, not some magical replacement for what had been lost, just a stillness, a steadiness. I started smiling without faking it. I started sleeping through the night, and when I woke up in the morning, I didn't think about them first. I thought about coffee, about music, about what I wanted to do. They had stolen my trust, but I had taken back my future. And that, in the end, was the real revenge. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the noise faded. People stopped whispering, stopped asking questions, stopped looking at me like a tragic headline, and I let them. I didn't owe anyone a performance. Healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, boring even. It was brushing my teeth every morning, answering emails, lighting a candle just because it smelled nice. It was finally realizing that peace isn't something someone gives you, it's something you choose, every single day. I heard Liam moved out of the city. Some say he's still trying to explain what happened, still spinning stories about betrayal and confusion. Claire, I think, went back to live with our aunt for a while. Neither of them ever replied to my letter, not that I expected them to. There's nothing left to say when the truth is printed in bold across a screen in front of 100 people. Whatever future they thought they were building together started in ashes, and they can keep them. People think revenge is loud, a slap, a scream, a broken glass. But mine was quiet, it was composed, and it was unforgettable, because I didn't just ruin a moment. I rewrote the narrative. I showed every person in that room that betrayal doesn't break you unless you let it. That love isn't blind, it's just often too kind for too long, and when it wakes up, it doesn't beg. It walks out in heels and makes sure the door slams behind her. I look back on that day now and I don't feel anger. I feel proud. Proud that I didn't shrink. Proud that I told the truth. Proud that I walked away not with a broken heart, but with an open one, ready for something real someday. But even if that never comes, I'll still be okay. Because I found someone I never expected to meet again. Me. And they? They stole my trust, but I stole their future, and I sleep just fine knowing that.